Hello, everyone. I am back from my vacation. So today we are going to go over the two summer characters, Summer Francis and Summer Verna. This is mostly for that creator mission thing. So if you want to get like 30 free gems or something, I believe, uh, feel free to support me on the creator platform. But anyways, let's get into these characters. Let's start with Summer Francis. So what does Summer Francis do? At A0, she gives the following buffs: 20% attack boost to the team with a really good uptime, 40% earth boost to earth teammates, and then additionally she grants a 30% melee attack speed with a really dogshit uptime that happens every 12 seconds on her support skill. When she reaches A1, she can do her support skill a lot more often. The cooldown goes from 12 seconds down to 5 seconds, which makes it actually usable and gives it a reasonable uptime. At A2, she gains a ramping boss percent buff that goes from 6, then 12, then 18% every time she uses her support skill. And it basically wears off on swap. When you swap through your supports, it usually takes so long that this buff goes away. The attack speed buff also goes from 3 seconds to 4 seconds, which significantly increases the uptime of the attack speed. At A4, she refreshes her ult when you get staggers, which allows you to get the boss percent buff and attack speed buff during staggers, because she doesn't do support skills during staggers, just like every other character for some reason. And then at A6, she just gives more attack and earth boost. Her signature is fucking dog shit. It is literal ass. At F1, it gives 6% crit rate and 20% basic boost to Earth teammates every time she uses a support skill. Now, if you have A0, this sig is like turbo bad, because then you will only get this buff for 6 seconds every 12 seconds. So not only are you getting a terrible buff, but you're also getting it at like 50% uptime. Thankfully, A1 fixes that, though, to make this effectively 100% uptime, but it is still bad. This buff is useless outside of Earth, and it is only, like, passable in Earth. Even at F5, like, 40% basic is not that much, considering what Nare's Sig did. And, like, all of this is still basically outclassed by a duped Melody. So, like, this Sig is one of the worst Sigs in the game. And my theory is that the devs probably saw the mistake that they made when they made Nare's Sig turbo broken, and they got scared, so that they made the next support Sig, which is this one, they just made it turbo garbage. This is one of the Sigs of all time. Let's move on. Dupes. As stated earlier, A1 basically fixes her support skill to actually make it do something, reduces the cooldown by 7 seconds. It's basically required for S. Francis to pass as a good character. She's just not very good without A1. A2 just gives her a ramping boss percent buff and increases the duration of the attack speed buff by 1 second. A2 S. Francis is very good for Earth teams, and outside of Earth, it is comparable to A6 normal Francis. So A2 is a very good stopping point if you are looking to dupe up your S. Francis. A4 gives a free ult on staggers, and it makes the ult apply the attack speed buff. So S. Francis does not do support skills during staggers. So the purpose of this dupe is so that you can use your ult and apply both of the buffs to your main DPS before swapping to them. Now note that the attack speed lasts 4 seconds and the boss percent lasts 6 seconds. So after you switch to the main DPS, the buff is basically already gone. This is a not too good of a dupe. It's like fine, nothing game-changing, just a mid-dupe. And then at A6, it's just a boring increase to numbers. Attack goes from 20% to 40%. Earth goes from 40% to 60%. The attack buff is now a bigger attack buff than normal Francis. Yippee! So let's do a quick comparison real quick. At A0, she gives 20 attack, 40 earth, 30 melee speed. Compared to Francis, which is 35 attack, 30% weak on ult. And also, normal Francis heals a lot better. So, without A2, normal Francis is basically just better than S Francis. But then at A2, they're pretty much comparable. At A6, S Francis is just better normal Francis. Monsterlings, just look at the spreadsheet in the description. We have a lot of stuff here. We added a Conquest Teams sheet where all the Francises are used. So just come look at this sheet. You'll get monsterlings that are good. Her substats are kind of whatever. Put boss damage and weak because she kind of does damage sometimes. The other traits, you can do whatever you want. You can put, like, attack if you want to do more damage or something. It's whatever. She's a support. The traits you put on her don't really matter that much. She also doesn't benefit from cooldown reduction because her skill is usable regardless of cooldown when you swap her in, which is the only time you're going to use her skill. Rotation is very simple. You switch her in, you click her special, you click her ult if you have it, and then you swap out. You can't mess this up. This is the same as normal Francis. There's an optional dash cancel you can do out of the special, where if you don't dash cancel out of her special, she will stay on the field and do a really long pose. It looks like this. So this pose prevents her from using her support skill. So if you really want to get the attack speed fast, you can do this dash cancel after the special so that she immediately uses her support skill when you switch to your main DPS and then use like a basic or something. Most of the time though, this doesn't really do much. And if you really want to fill that time, just put S Francis as the first character, the first support that you swap to, so that you can use the second support's rotation or whatever the second support is doing to fill the time that S Francis is posing. Now we move on to S Verna. What does she do? At A0, she has an alright main DPS, basically just a side grade to Mina or high dupe Angel. At A1, she gains a pretty strong A1 that gives a lot of damage buffs, to where A1 S Verna is slightly stronger than A1 Mina. At A2, she stays on the field for a reasonable amount of time, which is somewhat irrelevant for a main DPS. And she gets the ability to cast a special skill on Switch Out, which we will discuss later. At A4, she starts to fall behind Mina, A4, because her dupes are just weaker than Mina's dupes. This dupe gives her a little bit of special damage and a lot of cooldown reduction on her special, which greatly increases her on-field performance, and she stays on the field a little bit longer, which is, again, irrelevant. At A6, she gets a lot of on-field main DPS buffs. Now, I'm going to rant here a little bit. It is clear from her base kit and the A1 and A2, or A4, like, second half or whatever, that the devs intended to make her, like, a sub-DPS of sorts, but they didn't give her any fire affliction or fire damage boosts or anything. So, like, what ends up happening is S Verna is just a worse sub-DPS than Angel. Now, you might think maybe S Verna just does a shit ton more damage so that it covers for the lack of debuffs. But no, her A6 basically only works when she is the main DPS and on the field. Why do you give a character that was built to be like a sub DPS or like an off-field fighter DPS or whatever? Like, why do you give them this kind of A6? Anyways, we're gonna get there when we get there, but you'll see what I mean. I think the devs have no fucking clue what they are doing when they made this character. Now, the signature is, it's just your standard main DPS sig. It gives a lot of damage boosts, and her sig is very easy to proc. There's no gimmicks. Like, you basically just permanently have this attack boost, and then permanently have these basic and special skill boosts. It's just a good sig. Like, there's nothing special about it. It just works. It's a good sig. A1. This is a very good dupe. It just gives stats. It effectively gives 10% attack, 20% crit rate, and 10% fire. the sum of all of these things. Numerically, this is one of the strongest A1s in the game. It gives a lot of damage boost, and it's very good. A2 gives Verna a pretty much negligible support damage buff. Like, you get 40 to 80% of this stuff from your supports and their passives, so like 10% is nothing. It's supposed to make S Verna like off field or whatever, but she just does more damage when she's on field, so none of this really matters. And then additionally, she casts a special skill when she switches to another teammate. Now, if you've played S Verna, you'll know that her basic attacks do a lot of damage. So, like, I'm not even sure if this extra special skill does, like, significantly more damage than if she just stayed on the field and basic attacked. So, like, all of this put together makes this dupe just kind of mid. It doesn't... It feels like it really doesn't do anything. Let's move on to A4. A4 gives a 20% boost to special skill damage. Pretty nice. And whenever you basic attack, you reduce the cooldown of the special skill by 0.2 seconds. This is an extremely good CDR effect, and lets you spam her special skill a lot more when you're main DPSing with her. And then just randomly, it has this like off-field buff for whatever reason. This is the first passage is what you get this dupe for. Helps with her main DPSing tremendously. A6 is where I have problems. The entirety of this dupe is to buff her on-field main DPS performance. The first line makes Ember work at full power regardless of whether or not she's on the field or not, so it just translates to a 20% fire damage boost. The second paragraph gives a ramping buff that stacks up to 10 hits, and at max stacks it gives 30% crit rate, 50% crit damage, and 30% attack. If you're familiar with the meta and how teams work in this game, you'll know that crit rate is being capped by like 20% here. We don't need this crit rate. And there's not a lot of ways we can drop crit rate. This part right here is pretty much useless. 50% crit damage is good, but it might be subject to crit capping if you use a crit damage buffer, like say Bonnie, I guess. And then 30% attack sounds like a lot, but you'll know that like when you play this game, you have upwards of like 120% attack from like your various sources, like food or your Francis or whatever. So like all three of these buffs are subject to like not diminishing returns, stat saturation or caps. So the boost that you get from these is a lot lower than it first might seem. On top of that, these stacks go away when you stop controlling Verna or hitting the boss for 1.5 seconds. Do you know how short 1.5 seconds is? If the boss jumps away from you or moves away, or like you just miss some of your basic attacks or skills, you lose all of these stacks and you have to stack them again. Like all of this put together makes this dupe probably one of the weakest A6s in the entire game numerically. And when you put into practice that of this like 1.5 seconds, this dupe is ass. It is so bad for an A6 dupe. It's almost as bad as Nare's A6. And it totally ruins what could have been a really cool like sub DPS character, where like imagine if this dupe said like whenever S Verna is off field, she debuffs a boss like by 20% fire resistance or something. That would be so much better than whatever the fuck this is, because it would make her into like a support / sub DPS role that they clearly made her to be. But they didn't do that. They just made her a main DPS with her A6. Alright, rant is over. Let's continue. Monsterlings, again, check the spreadsheet. She wants boss damage, element weak, CDR, and crit damage, as usual. She basically is just another Mina. You want to use the skill as much as you can, so hence the CDR. At A6, you can drop Ice Fist, dude. because you don't need this crit rate anymore for anything else you want. There's not many good choices. One good choice, I guess, is like Teal Tar, but you already have so much fire, and Teal Tar only works on staggers. So, like, there's nothing to put here. Watch for the crit damage cap. Sometimes you might run a team where you hit the crit damage cap, so you can switch it for attack percent if you want. The rotation is also quite simple. You switch her in, you click her special, you mash basic attacks until the special comes back, and then you click the special, and then you mash more basic attacks. And then when you're tired of mashing these two buttons, you swap out. You can click the ult whenever you want, and if you have buffs, you click it. She is a very straightforward character. Just hit the buttons that do the big damage, and you get big damage out of it. So let's go over a quick summary of these characters. S. Francis is a best-in-slot supporter for Earth, requires A1 to function, and A2 to be a A6 Francis side grade for non-Earth. She is usable in many teams, and completely replaces Francis in all teams if you have A6. S. Verna is a Mina/Angel side grade, scales off of dupes pretty well with A1, but falls off a cliff with her later dupes. She is completely outclassed by A6 Mina by leagues as a main DPS, and she is outclassed by Angel as a sub DPS because Angel buffs the main DPS's fire damage, applies a fire affliction, and doesn't spend 2 seconds aura farming every time she switches in. Should you pull on these characters? S. Francis is very good. Try to get A2 with the event compasses. She will likely remain best in slot in Earth for a very long time. She's just generally good everywhere, not even in Earth. So you should pull this character. Now, a quick note. When I say side grade to Francis, that is not a bad thing. Francis is literally one of the best characters in the game. So being a side grade to Francis means you are one of the best characters in the game. S. Verna, you should only pull for if you really, really want a fire DPS. You don't have Angel, and you don't want to wait, and you like how S. Verna plays, and you don't have Mina, and you just, like, don't have any other options, and you just want to hit hard. Do not pull S. Verna if you're trying to make your Mina stronger. Do not run them in the same team. A2 Angel or A4 Angel is just a better sub DPS / support for your Mina. S. Verna is a main DPS. Don't try to put them in the same team. It will not work out that well. And that is the end of the slideshow. So, as per usual, we're just gonna go play these two characters in like Reginula or something to show them off. Similar to last time. Let's turn these back on and go to Reginula. Oh yeah, this was my all 4 stars clear. This video is up on YouTube right now if you want to go see it. It should be the video before this one. So let's run this team in Reginula to see what the characters do. We will use Angel as the third party member because she is broken, and we'll just do this. So, let's begin. You can see how simple the rotations are. You just swap them in, click the skill, and then on S. Verna, we just basic attack. My buff wore off, so I can just click it right here before attacking the boss. And then here, I'm going to press the skill again. Now, if you notice, every time I do a photo shoot, the boss pauses, but the timer does not pause. So every time you do a switch skill with these summer characters, you're gonna be losing like 2 or 3 seconds of time on the timer. That's just a feature of the characters. Nothing you can do about it. And then we're just gonna basic attack and then press the skill. And then we're gonna ult. And then we're gonna keep pressing basic attacks. And then switch out. So here I stopped attacking the boss for like a split second. I probably lost all my stacks. So here I'm missing all my attacks. I probably lost my stacks again. Doesn't matter though. Reginula lets you switch too much, so you can just do whatever the heck you want. Here I'm not hitting the boss for 1.5 seconds. I definitely lose my stacks here. And that's it. 128, 1.3 million-ish. Seems like a pretty decent score. That's kind of what I expect from this character. That is about the score that Mina can get solo, by the way. So yeah. Here, I'll show my gear real quick, and then that'll be the end of this video. I think that pretty much showcases everything you need to know about these characters. Alright, here's the gear, and yeah. I was using Melody because it is so much better than this dog shit ass signature. Yeah, I was using Teotar, which is like fine, I guess, as a third option. Okay. In the upcoming weeks, not weeks, just the upcoming days, I will probably make a few more videos featuring S. Francis, because S. Francis has some interesting interactions with characters like Benjamin and especially Sarah. So, look forward to that, but I don't think I will be doing much with Verna because she's just not that good of a character. Alright, that'll be all. Thank you all for watching. Remember, if you feel like getting some free stuff, you can support me on the creator platform. Yeah, that'll be all. Thank you all for watching. Bye-bye!